We discovered NVR maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it's a model that I think has come to Europe around 1999 and is from Israel, from this guy called Haim Omer, as a way of working with families where there are children with challenging behavior. And that's what
I think for us what was really helpful was the fact that it was the idea that we have children who are referred to CAMS that perhaps don't want to engage, but you've got other professionals saying, give them a service, do something. And actually it was a way for us to find out a way of working, so you work with the parents but not with the child. And it was a way of engaging everybody.
And in a way, it really fits well with a systemic idea of everyone having to bring something to the process of change, of coping with difficult situations, because it's very, very clear for the parents that the people that have to kind of talk and maybe put some change are the parents. It's nothing to do with try to change the child. So in a way, if you have in front of you a lot of the time very desperate parents that come with the request of, I don't know what to do anymore, I've tried everything, the situation is impossible. So it's very much a way of working with, say, no, maybe there is something to do. So to give a response where you really feel that there is no response.
I think we sort of originally did it sort of for children who are being violent towards parents. And really our first group we did, that was mainly the symptoms they come. But since then, what we've kind of understood, it's when anything that's controlling the family life. So, for example, we're going to start doing an OCD group. So when children have OCD, and that is controlling the whole family, because they're controlling the parents, and the parents just feel powerless. So whether it's violence or whether it's OCD or anything like that, for us, the MVR method of doing things has just been so helpful.
Yes, it can be done with everyone that feels that the impact of mental health, for example, even in adult mental health setting with families where there are adult children, but when there is a sense, the parents bring a sense of being erased completely, not to have a presence, having lost any idea of their resources. And that is where very much the fit with systemic, because when we're working with families, we are trying to enable family to find their resources to cope with any challenge that comes their way. And that's what NVR does. It reconnects the parents, the adult, the carers with what they can do to help in the situation. So that's very, very much fit with the kind of direction guidelines of systemic intervention.
Different people do it in different ways. And I mean, we do a group, but also I think one of the things that I would say is we do so much when we're working with individual families. So it's not just a group model. It is, I think we use it all the time. I would say there's probably now when we have families, we use bits of it. Bits of ideas and different trying to help the parents get that authority back, that that we use that all the time in our work. But at our sort of model, which we call parenting children with challenging behaviour, is about every fortnight, term time, and then in between that, although it's not like a parenting group, so you do the group and then that's it. So in between that time, we will maybe have odd meetings with people if there's something that they're particularly struggling with, or something that really resonates with them, or they're having a particularly difficult time, or maybe we do that over the phone. We're obviously born now at the moment during lockdown. We do different ways of doing things, but even before lockdown and everything, we had times when we would just have a meeting in the middle of the group, and it's very, very different to a manualized parenting model.
you can really change depending on the context. And it's very much guidelines of making an intervention. So you can decide to do with one single family, with a group. The group can be absolutely different. There are people that now it's very common in social services or in other camps, and people apply in a variety of ways. And you can use it, these guidelines, much more psychoeducation, at more manualized in a way, and go to the other extreme, that is the psychotherapy group. So depending on the context, depending on the facilitator of the group, the tools are there, you can use it in different way. And that's very much the richness, yeah.
We started off and we went to half a day training.
Yeah, it was an after day introduction, taster.
And we sort of, not being very arrogant, but we came back and thought, oh, we can do this. This is, you know, we're systemic therapists. We can do this. This is the thing we can do. And we then did another day, but it was one of those things where, as we learnt more about it, we actually then realised how much we didn't know. And you know, and we then both went on to master classes,
yeah, because
we thought we were.
Yeah, we started from the introduction and the master classes. That actually was quite good, and then we did the basic, the beginners, and the advanced.
Yeah.
So we have done it. But I think what it is that, in a way, you use concepts like the aim is protecting the relationship between parents and child, identify resources, changing the perception that parents have of the child and vice versa. That are all systemic concepts, but for professionals, it's a very good training because it's very detailed, without being prescriptive.
I think you do need training. Don't do it the way we did it. I mean, I think it's also, I think we sort of, I mean, the fact that both of us were trained at the same time and we worked together quite closely obviously helps. So we didn't just sort of,
yeah, it gave us strength, the idea of sharing and doing it together. Yeah,
but certainly when we've gone on training courses, that a lot of people have done things like that. So they've joined a group with an experienced practitioner who then they've sort of done that once or twice and then gone and done their own group and things like that. Yeah. So in the anyway, it's, and actually now, because the key concepts sort of come really easily to us, you know, in the same way that when you were learning to be a family therapist, it was kind of, you know, oh gosh, was that a circular question or all that, and it's all quite clunky to begin with, and so it is practice, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think just a lot of the concepts are just very, very helpful.
Yes, and I feel that to do the training, it depends. If you have a previous training in psychotherapy, having systemic really makes you able to use the model at the maximum, because you already have, while maybe if you don't have any training in psychotherapy, not only systemic, but other form of psychotherapy, then you would probably tend to use it more as a kind of educational and yes, psychoeducational, I would say. And both are good, but I think that the previous training helps to grasp the power of the model. We have probably practiced for two years after having finished the advanced. He really gives you a clarity of the direction and hope about a direction that is actually really useful.
I think the way the groups work is, I mean, the first two sessions are everybody going, oh my goodness, I didn't realize other families were dealing with this. I can't believe this is exactly like so and so, exactly like Johnny, this, oh, that's so exact. And that basically is the first two groups of kind of just actually, and that is a huge relief for parents.
Yeah.
So I mean, one parent sort of said, oh my goodness, it's so nice, I had this and I went on the Triple P, which is a perfectly good course, but I went there and everybody was talking about, the drawing on the wall, and I'm there saying he's smashing the house up, and it actually doesn't. So actually they sort of, I think that's the first two, that's the process. And then I think the second process is about helping parents think about actually what I can do. It's not about changing my child. You know, there are things that I can do.
And very often, if you take a certain point of observation and position, you discover together with the parents that they are already doing it, but very much fragmented and spread, and they have not punctuated that aspect as a useful one. So basically you listen and then you do so you have done this, we call it in this model, we call it. So first the experience, then the kind of evidence that they are going in the right direction. And that's really the other things I wanted to say. The thing of working in groups is not NVR only, but we discover the power of working in groups is really, especially with families that have been, I would say, where there is a lot of blame, a lot of stigma, the having group as a way of addressing some of the issue is so powerful because of the connection, because ultimately all these families are very much traumatized family. And one of the way that you can work with trauma is through connection. And then finding that connection, having other witnessing what you have gone through is enormous. Very useful in itself. You can just put a group of people together and facilitating that process, and you achieve something.
You know, most of the families we have social services, have school, have all these others, you know, who are telling them that societal thing is like, you know, first of all, it's the parents' fault. Secondly, it's, you know, if they do something wrong, you have to give them a consequence. You have to do the behaviour. And that just isn't working for their children. And so actually having people who say, no, that won't work. It hasn't worked. You've tried it. You know, okay, for 90% of children, it does work. But actually for your children, that's not working. And that is a huge relief for them, because they feel that they've in some ways found that doesn't work. But actually then they have, you know, grandparents, they have social workers, they have teachers, everybody sort of saying, oh, no, you need to do it a different way.
What MVR brings is the idea of resisting versus reacting, and and parents struggle a little bit to abandon the escalation together with the child, because the fear of giving in, that very often is the message that they get from everyone else. And so it's a very subtle kind of work to understand what is the difference between you are resisting, but you are not giving in, or you are not ignoring. That are theme that comes out continuously. I was trying to ignore the behavior. So understanding what is ignoring versus responding, but not in it makes it all very, very clear, but it takes a little bit of time.
The first thing is safety, is that that doesn't mean giving in. So it might mean I'm not responding to this, I'm not engaging with this, and we will talk about it tomorrow. So that idea that safety is a big, obviously a thing we talk a lot about, and you know, what do you do at those moments? And also talking about different safety plans. So things like, if you have to call the police, what does that mean? And that actually is a form of resistance, and that actually is something we've talked a lot about in the group, and you know, other people's experience of using the police and other people. So one of the things that a lot of the families are very isolated and really don't tell anybody. So one of the things about the MVR is to talk about sort of sharing that secret and actually getting support for it to make it safer. So you know, often we have siblings who obviously the parents are extremely worried about, and we've done things like talk about safety plans with those, you know, so little ones, so do you run to grandma down the street, or do you go and stand in the front garden, or whatever it is that actually makes things safe. And so one of the key concepts of things is that you don't do the parenting at that moment. At that moment is just about stopping. So you're not giving lectures, you're not escalating, we're just not doing the violence here. And so in some ways it is making things safer.
Yeah.
And then I think it's a slow process then about parents resisting. And I think.
And the other key point that is quite important to remind is that what we are trying to do is not to make the situation okay, but limit the damage. That was very, very, very important to say. So what would limit the damage? And accident can happen because the level of violence in some cases is really high. And so the experience that that didn't work, that so calling the police is a way of a protection. Is not, you protect your child to do something accidentally that could be very serious. And it's about finding the strength to also the idea of setting a line, because at that level the parents feel that they're completely powerless. So the idea of limiting the damage and setting a line is already an enormous step. There was this mom and dad that were describing being at the front door looking outside while their daughter was mashing a room. And they were saying it was very tough, but we knew that the only way we could do it, just don't do anything at that moment, because we would have made things worse. And eventually the daughter stopped.
And I think also the resistance is one of the things, it's done very, very gradually. So the first sort of thing that we talk about when you talk about resistance is sort of perhaps actually when your child's shouting, you finish your cup of tea before you go to them. Or, you know, it's very, very sort of simple, and it's regaining that bit about themselves. So maybe actually they're regaining who they are is about going to the pub with a friend. Now that might have nothing to do with the violence, but it's about trying to, okay, who am I and what do I want to do and what sort of parent do I want to be, and trying to help them regain that part of themselves. I mean, we've had amazing feedback from families, but and I suppose one of the things that I suppose, whether it's a frustration or whatever, is that we have this sort of phrase of invisible outcomes. So the sort of things that aren't captured on your normal RCADs or your normal ORs and CORs and all those things that are looked at as commissioners. So, I mean, we have had parents who say to us, you know, our child would be in care if it wasn't for the MBR course, you know, and huge things like that. And I suppose one of our sort of things is like how we've had conversations about how do we capture this sort of this, you know, this actually that parents have told it has actually transformed their lives, and that it has actually made it possible to keep a relationship with their child, to keep it safe. I think the other thing that we've noticed is that often by doing the MBR course, the child sometimes can look like it gets worse. So there's several examples when the violence has reduced and things have got a lot calmer, the child has then come quite depressed or even suicidal. And that, so actually sort of on paper, it looks like the child's got worse, but actually the child is now showing their vulnerabilities to the parents, who are then obviously able to come and get the correct treatment for them, rather than the police and everybody else and go to custody and all the things that would normally happen when they're being violent.
Yeah, it's definitely not cannot be a short time intervention. Yeah, if you want to accompany a family through the whole process. We do maintain the link with the parents that come to the group, because in the group very often they model, identify champion parents that continue to present their experience to the new groups. And we have tried to do this, and has been so important. And that's where sometimes we have really understood what has changed for that family when they have come back to talk about it.